my fellow Americans. I'd like to tell you a story that I learned when I was young that gave me so much pride in our country that I'm hoping by the time I'm done, you feel the same amount of pride. Now, a lot of people believe that 1776 we won our independence, and in a sense we did win our independence, but we may have won the battle. We had not won the war. That raged on for many, many years after. The story I'm about to tell you happened September 12th, 1814. It was called the Battle of Baltimore, and it was the defense of Fort McHenry. Now, 2 weeks prior to this, the British had invaded Washington, D.C., and they had burned down the Capitol. They had burned down the Treasury. President Madison and the other dignitaries of our country, senators and congressmen, had all escaped to Virginia. Now, 2 weeks later, Francis Scott Key, the name should sound familiar, rowed out to one of the British naval ships that was anchored in the harbor and spoke with the commander, trying to free the men that they had kept as prisoners. Now, after hours of negotiation, he had reached the agreement needed to free the men, but he was told that they would all have to stay on the ship because they were getting ready to bombard Fort McHenry. And yes, this is about the song, and this is why it's so important. So hear me out. The commander for the British fleet told Francis Scott Key, if you look at the horizon, you'll see the rest of the British Navy as they come into the harbor. And at dusk, they began to fire their cannons at Fort McHenry. Relentless. For 24 hours, they shot everything they had at Fort McHenry. Their idea was they needed to bring that flag down. They needed to bring the flag of the United States down, and therefore they knew that those in the fort would have surrendered. 24 hours, constant cannon fire, hit that fort, hit that flag, hit the rampart that it was on, over and over again, but the flag still flew. For 24 hours, they bombarded that fort. At one point, the commander for the British fleet told every ship to train their guns on that rampart to take that flag down, and they fired over and over again. And as he wrote so eloquently, when the morning light came, the flag still stood. Now, Francis Scott Key went into Fort McHenry to find out how that was possible, because he knew there were multiple hits that were happening on that flag and on that rampart. And he was right. That flag and that rampart were hit multiple times. But what stopped it from falling? What stopped it from crashing to the ground, showing that the Americans, the patriots that were there, were not going to give up, was when that flag faltered. Men, brothers, fathers, sons, went out and they held the flag up manually. And when it got hit again and again, and those men perished, other men went out and they held that flag up. that flag cost many lives, but it stood to show that the Americans were not going to give up our freedom. We were not going to allow it to be taken away from us. But we at that same point today, I ask you to look at what's happened to our country. Has our government and the two-party system become so powerful, become so overwhelming that they no longer care what the American citizens want or need, that they only go after what they want and they need? Now, many will say that this government has become tyrannical and corrupted. They're working to take away the Constitution. They're working on the amendments to take those away from us. They're trying to force things on us that should never have happened. We are the beacon of hope around the world, and we are those men and women, those regular people that just wanted to be left alone. We wanted to raise our families, work our jobs, and live in peace. But it looks like we're at that point again, where we, the men and the women that believe in this country, that believe in the foundations of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, we want those preserved. We want those kept. We want to be the beacon of hope around the world, that here in America, you're free. We must think about where we're at and where we're going. And we must all come together with the realization that the only way this country is going to remain free is if we, the people, come together as the one great nation that we've always been and we can always be. I ask you to think about this long and hard. My name is Edward A. Gray. I am the creator of the American Patriot Movement. And I think it's time that we say enough, that we say we're done. We are done with watching a government and its corruption take away our very livelihood. It's our turn to stand up and hold that flag high. It won't be easy, it won't be pretty, but together we can be that nation once again. Join me, the American Patriot Movement. God bless America.